Good evening. How's everyone doing today? I see some smiley faces. Good evening. Okay, we're in the building. We're streaming Facebook Live as well, so we want to make sure that the community knows the community is in the building as well, and they're going to be missing out. I just want to say welcome. My name is Alicia Harriel. I serve as one of the Treasure Coast organizers with Faith in Florida. Here in St. Lucie County, we do cover Martin and Indian River County as well. Faith in Florida, just real briefly, is a faith-based nonprofit organization that works to create change in our community by having listening sessions, knocking on the doors to our community, seeing what the concerns are, what keeps them up at night. And one of our biggest initiatives is getting electoral information out to our community, letting our community be informed on who is running, who's on the ballot, the issues that are on the ballot, and what values that our candidates bring that relate to us. What are the concerns that we're having in our community, and how can those candidates use those concerns to create solutions with other candidates or other elected officials that will be serving our community. So I don't want to hold us up too long. We also are partnering with the NAACP here in St. Lucie County. The president is en route, so she will be here just shortly. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. If you're representing an organization, if you're representing a candidate, your congregation, we just appreciate you for coming out tonight to be informed on our City of Fort Pierce District Commissioners. So I want to open us up in a prayer, and I'm going to introduce Minister Lavelle Lee, who is a super volunteer with Faith in Florida, and he's also a faith leader for Greater Love Family Worship Center here in the beautiful city of Fort Pierce. So Mr. Lavelle, if you can please come.
Let's go on and bow their heads. Father, we thank you tonight. We come to you in the name of Jesus. We pray that you look down on this agenda tonight, the meeting for the candidates, for the commissioners. We welcome you, Holy Spirit. We welcome your wisdom and your insight as we dialogue based on what's happening in our community. We thank you for what you're going to do and say here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Minister Lavelle. I also want to introduce our moderator for tonight's forum, Ms. Jean Law Scott. She's a community member. She's a great woman of wisdom, of knowledge, and we appreciate her for coming out tonight. And also, when she's coming up, we can also ask for our candidates to come and take their respective seats as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you so much, Faith in Florida. Good evening, everyone. It is wonderful to see you tonight, and we thank our candidates as well, and we thank this church and this church family for hosting such an event. I see we have our candidates from District 2, Mr. John Joseph Henning and Mr. James A. Taylor III. Let me just say we are going to have opening statements. Our opening statements will be about 2 minutes. Then we will have our question and answer session. That'll be about 3 minutes each. And then we were going to have our closing session, our closing remarks, and they will be 1 minute long. Community members, we again are so thankful for you being here this evening. We're going to ask that any applause or anything like that, let's hold that to the end, and we'll thank everyone at the same time. We are going to ask questions, but we also will have opportunities for the community to ask questions, and that's why we have those mics there. If you don't want to ask your question and would prefer to write it on a card, we do have index cards that we can pass around, and then you can write your question, and I can answer it. I can ask that question for you. Again, each candidate is going to have equal time to make sure that they have their answers provided. There will be a 15-minute or 15-second warning by that clock there. So let's just go ahead and jump right in, and we will have our opening statement. Mr. Henning, if you would like to start for us.
All righty. Hi, my name is John Heening. I want to thank the NAACP Also, Mrs. Nash for that nice invite that I got, and the church for holding this forum tonight. I do appreciate it. So, my name is John Heening, and I am running for City Commissioner for District 2. My background is leadership, success, and commitment. Leadership, from what I have grown to know, is my 26 years in the United States Navy. I did 26 years. I started from the bottom, worked my way up to the top as a command master chief, and I ran several commands. My success is having two businesses here in Fort Pierce. I did 18 years as a home inspection business. Then I shifted over to a real estate office, and I'm doing that for the last 8 years. Some of the stuff that brings me to Fort Pierce, once I retired from Hawaii, I wanted a nice, beautiful beaches and nice weather on the East Coast. So here I am. I'm a very committed person. I committed my 26 years to the country, and now I'm committed to Fort Pierce. I've done several committees with Fort Pierce to learn the city. I've been here over 20 years. I've been in the infrastructure, Surtex oversight. I'm on the parking committee, and I'm also on the planning board for the city of Fort Pierce. So I see a lot of stuff, but as a commissioner, you make the decisions. It's a lot of input from the boards and committees, but as a commissioner, you make decisions that change the lives of us here in Fort Pierce, and that's where I feel I need to be, to help Fort Pierce grow with the economy, safety, health, well-being, and being a commissioner would be my best way of helping the city of Fort Pierce. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Heening. And also, we have our candidate from District 1, Mr. Curtis Johnson, Jr., and so he will also provide us with answers to our questions. I just wanted to be known that we did invite candidate Sheena Clyburn, but we did not hear from her. So now we will have our opening statement by Mr. James A. Taylor. And Mr. Heening, I'm sorry I pronounced your name incorrectly. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate the association doing this. You know, it's so important that you guys know who we are, know what we stand for, and know what we bring to the table for the city of Fort Pierce, because that's how we make changes here. So my name's James Taylor. Running for the city of Fort Pierce Commission, District 2. I'm a lifelong Fort Pierce resident, 5th generation here in Fort Pierce. I brought my lovely wife with me tonight, Jenna, of 8 years. We've been living and working in Fort Pierce our entire marriage. So I'm excited to be a part of this. So a little bit about my background. I've spent most of my adult life in Fort Pierce and trying to change the reputation that I believe Fort Pierce has always had. And that's, Fort Pierce is unsafe. Fort Pierce is, you know, there's nothing to do in Fort Pierce. You don't want to go downtown. That's something that I've dealt with as a resident my entire life. You know, as a kid, we never went downtown. And it's been my personal mission to change that. And I've spent the last 10 years working on boards and committees, learning how our government works, learning how our city operates. Been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for over a decade with the county. I know how to work with developers. I know how to make these tough decisions because I've been making them for the last 10 years. I've learned to see where my decisions came from and see them come to fruition and see the consequences of those decisions and how they affect our community. And I'm real excited to be here, and I'll not going to take the full 2 minutes, but looking forward for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Ms. Attorney Laws. I'm Curtis Johnson. I'm the incumbent in District 1. I am up for re-election in this election cycle. I would ask for your continued support. I entered a commission 4 years ago, and one of my main missions was to pronounce something called One Fort Pierce, and that's to get District 1, District 2 commissioners, as well as the mayor, to understand that we need to govern our city as one Fort Pierce. We cannot approach Fort Pierce as a District 1 or a District 2 and not be concerned me versus 2 or 2 versus 1, because, and they brought into the concept to understand that the only way you get into Fort Pierce is coming through District 1. And some of our major corridors are things that we have identified that we are going to beautify that will help people understand that they're in Fort Pierce, understand our cultural identity that we have here. We are a very diverse community of close to 50,000 people, and we are growing. And so it's been my mission to make sure we have a unified commission. We have civil discourse. We disagree sometimes, but how we do that and how we make those arguments don't make it that we can't work together. And so if reelected, and hopefully the community will see fit, that we will continue that mission. We'll continue the mission of economic development in our community. I've stated for the past couple of weeks, a lot of people did not know this, but we run a city of 50,000 people on $58 million. And we have got to grow our economic base, a tax base, to provide the service that the citizens of the community want and need. And hopefully I'll get a little bit more to expound on that as the night goes on.
Thank you so very much, candidates. We are now going to jump into our questions. The first question is around community needs. What do you perceive to be the greatest need in the African American as well as the overall community? For example, regarding jobs, housing, training, schools. What is your plan to facilitate and meet these needs? We will start with Mr. Heaney.
All righty. I didn't think I'd get that chance to go first. That's terrific. All righty. Hi. There's several needs, and it's not just African American. It is all of us here in Fort Pierce. We need better housing, and the cliche of saying affordable housing is one thing, but what we need to do is make it affordable by having better pay at our jobs. And the way to get better jobs, we need better schooling. I would love to see a large building. I was just down at 7th and H. Somewhere around there, a beautiful place would be to put in a school building where we could teach AC, electrical, welding, stuff like that. So we bring up the people in the area with the schooling that's available, and that would bring them more money, which would bring the housing more affordable. Instead of trying to throw in buildings that are just going to say, okay, it's affordable housing, let them buy lower prices. It's not that. We need to build everybody up so we can afford the housing, not bring the housing down to where we are now. So that's my one thing that really bothers me. Another thing that bothered me was, that's not happening yet, is our gun violence in the city. That is a big issue. Everybody here knows it for sure. I was out Saturday with boots on the ground on Avenue D. As we're walking and talking about trying to bring the community together, the funeral for one of the kids that got shot went right by. I'll tell you, it was a tearjerker to watch that go by, and it's just not getting anything done by us just saying, let's do something. We need to get out and do something with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor? Sure. The question is, what do you perceive to be the greatest need in the African American community as well as the overall community? For example, jobs, training, housing, schools, and what is your plan to facilitate meeting those needs?
I think you kind of answered the question, all the needs you listed there, jobs, housing, training. And I don't necessarily think as a city commissioner that it's the government's job to be facilitating most of those needs, but it's important that as a city government that we're creating a business-friendly environment. We're working with the programs and the different organizations that we already have in Fort Pierce, like Project Lift, workforce training, throughout training our kids how to work trades. IRSC just finished building their workforce training center at the main campus there, and I would lean into those types of organizations that have historically shown to do a lot better job than the government can, and it's where the government is able to support those types of organizations and work with the community and get those jobs and training, and that's how we increase home ownership in the city of Fort Pierce. We increase jobs, increase wages. Everybody has a trained skill, and because not everybody's going to college anymore. We all know that. And I think that's what the role as a city commissioner be, in my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
The number one issue is economics, making money, basically. The wages here in our city, our county are low. And so economically, we need to bring those opportunities here to increase the wage band in Fort Pierce specifically to the residents. The main critical issue is connectivity, particularly in the African American community. Candidate that's running mentioned about some of the pathways and opportunities that we have, but getting that information to the people that need it most is what the challenge is. And so we need to work with organizations like the NAACP and the fraternities and the churches to help that connectivity. The workforce development program is already built. It's at Indian River State College. Our young people who graduate high school can go to that college for 2 years, in most cases tuition free. And that, a lot of people do not know that. That has been a program that has been well funded, where major donors have given major money to it, and we have been trying, and I've personally been trying, because I'm on the foundation board at that college, to get the word to our community, to take advantage, to get to jobs and opportunities that pay a living wage, jobs that we right now are looking for in the city of Fort Pierce that are starting at $55, $65 an hour with some of these certifications, and we can't get our young people there. Everything stimulates from economics. The gun violence, in my opinion, in some aspects are caused by poverty and money and lack of money. And if people were making wages and living how they want to live, to afford a house, to provide for their families, you then would challenge the alternative of what they may resort to that may cause some of this that we're seeing in our street right now. All of it's not gang related, all of it's not drug related. There's a mixture of things right now, and unfortunately, people in our community are resorting to using weapons to settle whatever beef, discrepancy issue that they have, and it comes off as gun violence. And so we have to be careful, because the news is picking up on that, and it makes it challenging to attract developers that want to build in the city of Fort Pierce. And that's a challenge, because there are incidents that's happening that are not technically in the jurisdiction of the city of Fort Pierce, but it's always Fort Pierce. And that's a challenge as a sitting city commissioner right now, when I'm in front of those cameras, is to try to convey that Fort Pierce is safe, Fort Pierce is a great community, and we're on the rise. And we're going to need the community help to help stave off some of this, so that we don't put ourselves in a bad position that we can't grow our city and grow our economy.
Thank you, candidates. I have to stay on script, so I don't have follow-up questions, but you may have follow-up questions, and that's why it's going to be important. If you have questions that you want to follow up with our candidates, you will have that opportunity to come to the mic, or you can provide me with your questions and I can ask them on your behalf. Our next question is going to be about transportation. How do you feel about the transportation currently available in our city? Do we have enough options? And if not, what will you do to increase those? Mr. Taylor, if you'll start, please.
So our current transportation options, we have the Treasure Coast Connector, we've got the Freevee downtown, the other bus whose name I'm blanking on at the moment, but transportation is obviously a big thing in Fort Pierce and in Florida in general, just because of the nature of how our cities are set up. They're very spread out, and you can't just walk down to the street, and get to the corner store as well as you could in larger cities. So it is important to have those types of options. Obviously, it was a huge blow to the city to get the Bright Line here, and that's more of a regional transport system, but not necessarily within the city. I know City of Fort Pierce did just expand the route for the Freevee, and I think that's coming out in, Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in June, right? So I'm excited about that. That's proven to be a very successful program and relatively low cost for how many ride shares that it's been doing over the last year or so that we've had it. I would look to expanding our bus routes and increasing the number of stops that we have. And there's definitely a lack of information because I feel like people don't know that we have those opportunities out here. That the bus is an option, that freebie is an option, and using the city as a way to, tell people that these programs are out there and that we can do this. I think there's other opportunities with working with Uber and Lyft and some of those lower cost options because the busing system is expensive and it's hard to regulate when you don't have people on the bus every day. And so some type of public-private partnership where we could get Uber and Lyft to subsidizing costs, and I think there's opportunities and programs there that we can get people moving where they need to be.
Mr. Johnson?
So transportation is an issue. I have the pleasure of serving you as citizens right now as the vice chair of the TPO, our Transportation Planning Organization. And so literally we just met yesterday to discuss this, of what's coming, the expansion of bus routes to our western corridor where most of some of the jobs are has been identified. The transportation to extending transportation hours. We have gotten feedback and understand that people go to work early and they need to come home late. And so the funds are there. The county and the city are working together now to make the increase for what we know is the demand that's there. Our ridership is actually very, very high right now coming out of this vicinity in this area, traveling down US 1. And we realize that we need to get people west out on Kings Highway, and we also need to get people to Port St. Lucie. And so we are addressing that concern right now, and the feedback that we've gotten has been resounding that there's not enough transportation, and so that investment is being made by both the city and the county to do that, not only on bus line, but what we call micro transportation, meaning that we can get you to a general area, but how do we get you to that last quarter mile or tenth of a mile that you need to get to? And so that's some of the things that we're addressing in some of the grants that we're pulling in currently to address this need. Mr. Taylor spoke about the freebie system. Freebie is an investment by the city of Fort Pierce. It's a ride-share program. However, what we're really trying to do is connect community. And so we piloted this thing for over a year, taking people across the bridge to restaurants. This year, we were able to expand that program, and the whole opportunity is to expose opportunities for restaurants and businesses in District 1. And so by having the opportunity for people to remove mobility to get to these restaurants, either coming from across the bridge over here or going from here across the bridge, we're trying to create a commerce system utilizing this to spur development and investment in small businesses. And so if you haven't downloaded the Freebie app, you can do that. It's F-R-E-B-E-E, I think. And right now it is currently online and working in what we call the CRA zone, this is the CRA zone. Most of Lincoln Park is there. And so our opportunity to utilize this to help mobilize some of our seniors that may be challenged, but also those looking to get to businesses and restaurants. This is a tremendous opportunity to create that commerce utilizing the transportation system known as Freebie.
Mr. Heening.
Thank you. I am raised in Brooklyn, New York, and the streets, anywhere you want to go in the big cities like that, and my 26 years in the service, I've seen a lot of cities in my life. What works is the bus systems that get you everywhere you need to go. I've rode on the bus. There's only maybe one or two people on it. When you talk to them, they say, well, it doesn't get me where I need to be. So I'm really glad that we're going to expand it, because that's one of the biggest things. The problem is we have these buses running back and forth empty because they're not taking the people where they need to be. So the expansion is a big one there, and I love that he said that already, that we're working on that. The other thing I did was ride the Freebie a couple times, and I've talked to the drivers. I mean, this is the only way we could really get the meat of our problems, is to talking to the people, the residents that live here. And the freebie drivers, there's 2 that I talked to in 3 rides that I rode, and they say it's the same people using it, and most of the time they're using it to go downtown or someplace to shop and then come right back, or to walk around like the marketplace and then come back. It's not doing enough for our city, so I'm against the freebie car service or asking people to use Lyft or anything like that. I think our bus systems need to expand. Get on a bus, go where you need to go, and be able to come back. I would love to see the freebie work, but it's only the same couple of people are using it a lot. It sure looks good because it's being used, but if it's the same people just going to shop and come back, I don't know if that's worth it or not. I would like to see the bus system full and reaching everywhere we need to go. I mean, we have a mall in 2 different cities. We don't go anywhere near there either. So we need to get people going into Port St. Lucie also. Port St. Lucie people come in here to spend the money downtown. That's what we need the bus system for. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you again, candidates. Our next subject area is unity and transparency. What is the action plan to address the divisiveness of citizens in their community and/or disinformation? Mr. Johnson.
I talked about it a little bit. We start with the City Commission to demonstrate what we mean by that. And you've seen a commission that while we have had civil disagreement, we have still found a way to not be disagreeable with one another, and we have found a way to continue to work and move Fort Pierce forward. What you see from our City Commission, and will continue to see, is that we need to get messages out to all aspects of our community. And so we've made commitments to do that as a commission, to come to the community, to engage with the community, to the community. It's important. The mayor is one that if she's invited and knows, and a lot of time it comes down to communication. You have to invite. You have to reach out because we don't see everything. But those times that we are invited and we can make it, we will make it, and you have a commission that is committed to doing that in this community. I think the other thing when it comes down to the community and unity is that we've made investments throughout this city to do that. This building right across the street over here, Incubate Neighborhood, was a city asset. And we partnered with an organization to really bring that building to fruition. Now, you know, some things happen. They're on the way back. But it's investments like that. It's investments like the Highwayman Museum. It's investments like a number of things that we're doing in the community that will begin to galvanize it. And it's as small as the investment as the freebie, because at one point, freebie was only conditioned to a certain geographical area. And so your commissioners, along with the others, went to battle to have that conversation. Freebie is widely used. Freebie is actually much more economical than the fixed route transportation that I talked about. We can literally do more in mileage on the small variable units than trying to move a bus. We actually cut it in half. So for about $600,000, I can get to more places. Costs me about 1.3 with fixed routes and buses. And so what we have found through some of those economic studies is that things like freebie are what we're doing to target, to get people to communities that they typically will not have exposure to. And our goal, my goal and vision is to have people visiting those restaurants throughout the city of Fort Pierce, especially those people that have made investment in our key areas of Fort Pierce and no one knows that they're there. And it's my goal to get people of all colors and shapes and sizes to understand that Fort Pierce is diverse and we offer a diverse cuisine, and we'd hope they take advantage of it.
Mr. Heaney.
Yes, thank you. And I like what you're saying about freebie, so just so you know. One of the things that I do see, we have a lot of stuff available from our commissioners, from the city, that information isn't getting out. And there's one thing, avenue, we need to get better at, is getting what we do have available out to the people. So that way we have more input from the residents, so our city grows. the way the people that are living here want it to be. I also think that we have an issue where the commissioners of the cities, both cities, and the county commissioners are not always on the same page, and that hurts our city too. So that needs to be brought a little bit better too. So it isn't just the community people need to do their side of it, we need to do our side as the city and work together between the commissioners and the cities. So we do have a working county. That's
Sorry, Mr. Taylor. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I think the question was on unity and transparency, is what I wrote down.
Yes. The question was, what is the plan to address divisiveness of citizens in our community and/or disinformation?
Right. Yeah, I mean, disinformation is a problem all across the country, and we all know that. So it's always important, and it takes organizations like the NAACP and other community organizations we need their help. The government needs their help to get the information out, to get the facts out of what's going on in our city, and I would challenge all of you to show up at a city commission meeting like the rest of us. This is like all of us should be. We got to be involved in our government and understand what's going on. And when you hear what's coming out of the horse's mouth, it can change your opinion. Transparency. I've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for almost 10 years. I've trained in Florida public sunshine law. I know all that. I've experienced it on that board, and as well as on my time on the Sunrise Theater Advisory Board. And I'm committed to transparency. I'm committed to educating people on what the City Commission does. Running for office it's an amazing experience. People don't even know what the City Commission is half the time. You should put more schools on 25th Street. We need more schools. I'm like, I have no control over that. Commissioner Johnson has no control over that. That's the school district. But it takes those organizations and being able to collaborate with the school district and understanding what the school district does and working with them. And I'm committed as a next city commissioner to be transparent, to hold regular office hours, to be available, because this is all our city. We're all doing this together. I'm not here with my own agenda, with my own things I want to accomplish, but I want you to trust my thinking process, my decision-making skills, and I look to you for help in making those decisions.
Thank you, candidates. I think it's time that we had some questions from our audience now. So if you have a question, we invite you to go to the mics. And if you would prefer that I read the question, you can provide your question to Alicia Herriot. We do have note cards. So if you need a note card. Do you have a question, sir? Okay, we have a mic right over here. Let me bring that to you.
This isn't the time to be shy. So come on up.
He's absolutely right. It is your time. If you have questions, this is your time. The candidates are here to answer your questions and provide you information that you're seeking. That's why you're here tonight. Sir.
Good afternoon. Amen. My name is Philip Peak. I was born and raised here in Fort Pierce in the 60s. I went to school here. I've seen a lot of changes in Fort Pierce, and I call it my city because I've seen a lot of changes. My dad raised 8 of us, 5 boys, 3 girls. He was a citrus worker right here in Fort Pierce. And I seen even back then, they didn't make a whole lot of money, but things was affordable. Housing was affordable. Rents was affordable. What I'm seeing today is very scary. What has happened, we have developers or owners that are coming in, they're remodeling houses, the rental property, and putting them on the market for sky-high rents, and people can't afford it. That's what everybody is seeing that. And the homeless population is skyrocketing. and people are turning a blind eye, a deaf ear. So my question is, and it's all about economics, does any one of you, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Henning, have a comprehensive economic plan for our community? Well, we're going to need something, because if nothing is done, if we vote for you all, put you all in office, and you don't have a plan to make serious change that we can catch up, we're going to be in serious trouble, our community. And we have this issue with immigration too. You know, and our children, they're really going to catch it. So I'm going to leave it with that, but I see the changes. I grew up here. My mother, my father, they didn't make a whole lot of money, but they kept a roof over our heads, and it's almost impossible to do today. Thank you, sir.
So I guess he'd like to really hear, like, what is your economic plan? We will start, Mr. Johnson.
Ms. Speak, thank you for that. It is scary. I too am a resident born and raised here. Grandmother was in this church. And so I know exactly what you're saying. We have to be careful even with development. So I'm just going to specifically talk about District 1 right now. What keeps me up and I'm afraid of is, yes, most of these properties around here that are vacant are not owned by people that are here. That we have some of our natives have sold Big Mama's house, whatever, and they're not coming back, and they've gotten their monies. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to control that, right? They have decided to let go and move on. What my concern is as these developments come, what happens then to the tax base and affordability of people just being able to hold on to what they have? So right up front, I'm going to tell you, no, I don't have a complete economic plan. What I can do is alert the community of what's about to come and how do we get in on the economic game. Because I too sat and watched the citrus have a stranglehold on the city of Fort Pierce. And unfortunately, those generations didn't make investments in the 401ks or retirement plans. And so what motivates me is to try to catch this younger generation as young as I can, to get them in the workforce, making money so that they can begin to support those that don't have those means, that are elderly, but get a platform for themselves. And that's my commitment economically, because it is coming. You're right, people are buying these houses overnight and they're turning them into investment properties. And unfortunately, I can't control what someone does with their own house. These commercial corridors and some development, you're going to see some things come in here very, very soon. And that's going to lift the tax base a little bit, but that's unfortunately going to cause taxes to go up over here as well. So we have to be careful with that so that we don't drive everybody out and overprice everybody. That's my greatest concern.
Mr. Heaney.
I too don't have a complete answer. I wish there was a straight answer for you on that. But we do need to broaden and strengthen our economy here in order to, even if it's downtown or on the waterfront, we need to bring that, the businesses here to raise everybody's cost of living up. Or not the cost of living, but the making of living. We have hotels and condos being built on the waterfront. They would bring jobs from people here too, and that would help. But I go back to my school theory of getting an AC, welding jobs, things like that to help with the economy. That would help us to afford those houses. I've been a realtor for 8 years. I've been doing inspections here for over 20 years. I know exactly how it's going also. I see the houses now boarded up where I know I brought a buyer once there before, and now it is a lot of big companies buying it. When I start off, and this goes back to what Mr. Johnson said about we had a bad name, it just can't get rid of or something. I start off with, I got this beautiful house, and I tell them things, and then they say, well, I don't want to be in Fort Pierce. I have to get them to understand, let's go look at the place first before you make a decision. And a lot of times I can get buyers to buy in here, but the cost of living is still hurting the people that are right next door to that person too. So I do understand that part, but if we bring up the economy in the whole town, it will slowly help the people that live here. And I go back to the schools and the education. I know the college has programs. Didn't want to take that away because that's a great program. But I would love to see a school right here that teaches that kind of stuff, and that would help us in the long run. All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Pete. And I mean, that is quite a question. It's a loaded question because this is a nationwide problem. And I think and specifically a Florida problem. You know, we've got lots of people moving here from up north where their prices were skyrocketing, and they come down here and it's a lot of money to us, but it's nothing to them. And they're coming here and they're buying up all our houses. And you know, some of us were, I mean, some, not me. I mean, I'm stuck in my house. I can't go anywhere. But you know, some of my neighbors that were able to sell their house for a lot of money, but they had to leave. You know, they left town. They couldn't afford a house of the same size, same value as what they were living in, and that's what's happening. So I think as far as my economic plan is keeping Fort Pierce business friendly. There's been an attitude in Fort Pierce, I think, over the years that I've seen. We were desperate for businesses to come here and operate their company here and give us jobs, and we let them do whatever they wanted. You know, because we wanted them here. But it's changing because, you know, the secret's out, and Fort Pierce is a great city to live in, and the businesses want to come here, but we have to hold them accountable and make sure it's a business that you know, fits our community, that the building fits our community, and that it's a part of our neighborhood, and that we want them here, and we got to hold them accountable for them doing what they say they're going to do. And we can take the businesses that we want, and, you know, God forbid I have another frickin' Dollar General or a storage unit on my Planning and Zoning Commission agenda. That's all we've been looking at lately. And then facilities aren't giving us a bunch of junk, but we can, you know, encourage them to be members of the community and give back and make sure that they're paying a living wage and do what we can to get the jobs that we all need and the transportation to get to those jobs.
Thank you, candidates. We have a question from C.C. Friedman. As you talked about, our population is increasing, but so is homelessness. What would you do, or what could you do about providing homeless shelters for our growing homeless shelters, or providing housing for our homeless? And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Taylor.
I served on the Housing Finance Authority for the county for about 7 or 8 years. And up until my time on the board, it had really never done anything. They'd a couple of missed opportunities where they were able to issue a bond, and everything fell through. And I was proud to be a part of the first multifamily affordable housing bond that the county was able to issue on that board. It's a housing development. It's in Port St. Lucie, but don't worry about that. But it was exciting to see government actually working for a change and being able to provide some affordable houses and having those contracts in place with the developer that ensured that there was going to be a certain number of units set aside that were going to be income limited, and providing the houses that we desperately need. I think as far as homeless shelters, and you know, those are temporary fixes. You know, those aren't some places that we want people living their lives out. And I would look to organizations like United Against Poverty, Graceway Village, that are providing food, providing clothing, you know, giving somebody a suit so they can go to a job interview, and, you know, giving you a hand up instead of a handout. And that's where my mantra has always been, and that's, you know, getting that information about those organizations and letting them, you know, lift up themselves and being able to help those people and help our people. And I'm rambling here, but that's it.
Mr. Johnson?
So my approach on homelessness is a little different. The first approach is we have to begin to understand what makes a person homeless, right? And I hear it on all levels, right? I see the people that I see every day walking around the street pushing carts. That's one aspect. but I also know that there are families, I know there are a lot of young people that's living on couches and couch surfing that classify and quantify as homeless. So there are a lot of different iterations to homeless. So if we want to address the people we see in the street that are visible, that sleeping in front of businesses and literally in some cases accosting people, the plan for that is to, number one, not provide a residency, but number one, to find an area that we can begin to put them into, and almost like a day camp meetup center to get them the help and the services that they need. Part of the issue as a sitting city commissioner is that there's a lot of good that's being done for the homeless community, but that creates challenges for me as a commissioner. As an example, you know, we love to feed them, love to take care of them, but I have to deal with the after effects of that because biological process kicks in, and now we have all kind of contamination going on in major corridors and areas that the city has to clean up. And so by providing some type of hub center that we can get the people that are living on the street to come there daily, to get their meals, to get their showers, to get into some counseling, to get them the medication they may need, and find those that are qualified for homes, to move them into that situation immediately, and continue to work with those and try our best to get people off the street is my approach to homelessness in the city of Fort Pierce. Because obviously what we're doing right now won't and cannot be sustained for a long period of time. But the city and the county have realized that we have to do something, and you will see a joint effort of us working together to provide some type of day resource center to work with them to identify and get them on a pathway to get them off the street.
Mr. Heaney.
Took the words out of my mouth. One of the things I've learned in my travels throughout my life is going through different cities. The homelessness fix I see is having a hub where people, what the cities like Paris or any of these bigger cities, they put a hub somewhere where the homeless people can go and get food, get showered, and they take it away from the community where it is tourist. So it sounds a little rotten because it's moving it away from the tourists so people don't see it. But at the same time, it is helping these homeless people because they got someplace they can go for a shower or get something to eat. Of course, the Salvation Army type stuff is good for a little bit, but it's not working. Otherwise, we would. Right now, it's building. We're getting homeless more and more right now. So this hub that he was talking about is exactly, I wanted to talk while he talked because he's taking the words out of my mouth. It's exactly what we need. We need this hub so they can go there and become human again and eat and shower and stuff like that. And then we slowly bring them into where we can give them a small job, something that they were comfortable with, because it is a mental health issue also. So we need to work with them with the mental health side of it and have that somebody from mental health at those hubs so they can talk about their issues, and maybe we can move them more forward in a better life would help our city out at the same time. I wanted to talk about the lady that you see all the time, a woman walking up and down US 1 with that cart. I've bought her meals maybe 6 times. I've tried talking to her a couple times. That's why I brought up the mental health. She doesn't want help. She's content and happy. But if she went to that hub and knew, even if she just hung out over there, now we're not walking up and down US 1, so it helps our city in the long run. And that's a hard thing to swallow, but that's what we need to do is move them someplace so it's not hurting our city. I know my time's up. But get them out there and the mental health, because she's a really nice lady.
Mr. Heaney, that's a really good point. I'm going to ask a question about mental health. Statistics show that mental health issues in Fort Pierce are at a crisis level. 5 to 6 people are being Baker acted almost every other day. Please outline how you plan to support funding that expands access to services and ensures equity and inclusion for the Lincoln Park community. And in addition, how do you plan on providing these resources and resource awareness to our youth in the community pertaining to the mental health crisis? I'm going to let you go ahead, Mr. Heaney.
I just answered that. No. I do like the idea of the hub and having people out there. We just need, like Mr. Johnson there, to come up with the money for it, because we would like to all fix everybody, but we also have to have the money. And it goes back to our economy and building the city up. But we do need mental health available. If we have somebody sitting out there just talking, just pay them all day long to sit there and answer those homeless people's questions, I think would help a lot.
Mr. Taylor?
I would again look to outside organizations that are already existing in St. Lucie County. I mean, if you haven't heard of Graceway Village, they're doing exactly what we're talking about here. They're just got a grant, they're working on funding, they're working on the site plan to make this hub. And that's what they're doing out on, they're on, can't think of, Hartman. But part of their issue is their location. They're in an old church, they're hard to get to, the transportation's not there, and that's one of their biggest challenges. But they've got the property, they've got the building, so they're close. And I think partnerships with organizations like that is the answer, because they're building transitional houses where people that are, we call them the working homeless. They've got a job, they can't afford a house. And they're working with the traditional homeless who have no job, have no house. And they're helping both of those types of economically challenged people. And I think that's the answer. And the hub is happening if we can get the transportation out there. And I'd also look to, we have New Horizons. There's always funding opportunities because it's finally becoming top of mind throughout the country that, taking away everybody's guns isn't necessarily the answer, because it's the mental health that's the problem. And the funding's available, and I would support that 1,000%, the most that we can do.
So, number one, the hub is closer to being a reality. Those investments are currently being made by the city and the county, and so we've identified that as a critical need, partly because it's been also mandated by state government. They give these laws and they don't put funding behind it, but nonetheless, we will find a way to address this issue. But I think it's also working with community partners. Like I said, the churches do a great deal with the homeless now. The problem of it is that unfortunately it's on our corners or in major areas, and it causes some nuisance that we need to deal with. So this concept of this hub is to centralize it, get services there, people will know where to go. And I'm glad Graceway Village is doing it on Hartman, because believe it or not, homelessness is not just in Lincoln Park. I got just as many people living in the woods out there off Hartman, behind the Walmart, and all of those areas out there are full of people living in the woods right now as we speak. So it's a citywide issue, but we're going to need many of these hubs. We hope we will have one that will be centralized here in the Lincoln Park area to begin to pull some of those resources off the street corners and put them in an area so that we can begin to address their mental illness and their food concerns, as well as their hygiene. I will say that we are partnering and have partnered with New Horizons. So they've come on in a major way to be a part of this. And also the Treasure Coast Homeless, what is that? Treasure Coast, council out of Vero Beach. They have now a designated person that's full-time here in Fort Pierce. And she's a well-known person, and God, I just drew a blank on her, but she had the portable showers that she had, and so she's now the point person for Fort Pierce, and we're working with her to make sure that we know and communicate that we're taking care of this challenge, and we will be able to provide services for the homeless here in the Fort Pierce area.
Thank you again, candidates. Community members, it's your time. What questions do you have? Ma'am? Go ahead, sir.
My question, good morning, my name is Joyce. My question is the youth. When I was growing up, we had summer jobs. These kids got to work in the city, they got to work in the county. My brother and my cousin learned how to do survey in the summer, and they just took off with it because that was a trade that they had learned from the summer. We need to bring jobs back to our youth, and that may help some of that. Also that I deal with little kids every day. I see the mental health issues early. So we need to start getting to these younger parents so that they can help their babies.
Thank you for your comment. So, jobs, we all grew up when that era when CETA was that, and that was really through the school board, and that provided some opportunity for us to work in the summers and earn monies. The city does take on youth in the summer. It's not a big number, but we do hire in the summer for that. We, through some of our community partners, like Boys and Girls Club, and some of those others, they do as well take on some of that. There are not enough jobs to go around. I'm just going to admit that up front when it comes to the youth. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. But it's also a flip side because I'm also now being challenged with a lot of the camps that are here are to capacity. And they can't. There are a lot of kids out here who need to be in a camp that can't get in because we just don't have enough resources that are here for the kids. And so, you know, what I've seen is some of those traditional organizations that used to do camps, either there's a funding issue, they didn't get their grants this year, or they just got out of it because they can't find the people literally to work in the camps, an adult, et cetera, that they can hire in these camps. And so it's a compounding issue. I'm not trying to escape what you're saying. I take it, I take and receive what you said. I agree with you. We've got to find some ways that we can get some of these youth higher, because I do believe if they're making money, they're less inclined to go to the alternative that's being offered to them. And I had a very frank conversation with someone today that kind of helped me understand that from a street level as to what those alternatives are out there. And so I greatly understand and appreciate that.
Mr. Taylor?
Great question. And to piggyback on Commissioner Johnson's response, I think that is a huge answer to some of the problems that we're having is exactly what he said, putting money in their pocket, especially during the summer, because that was one of my first jobs was an internship at the county when I right out of in high school in the summer, and it got me on the right path and got me into where I am today, and I believe in that a lot. I know Boys and Girls Club prior to the pandemic. I'm not sure if that program has come back 100%, but they partnered with local businesses like A&G Pools. We had an intern at my office when I was working for a pest control company. We had an intern there, and they partnered with any business that would take them, and the Boys and Girls Club had grant money that would pay them. So it would cost the business nothing. They got free labor basically, but the youth was still getting paid, and that was the important part. And they were learning, they got to pick wherever they wanted to go. You want to go learn how to do construction, you got an internship at a construction company. And I think those types of public, where the nonprofit is partnering with the local businesses, is a huge opportunity that we could expand on limitless. I mean, we could have thousands of kids in internship positions in the businesses that we have already existing.
Mr.
I don't want
Healy?
to just repeat what they said. I agree with them 100%. But I do go back to my time in Brooklyn, and I grew up a poor kid in Brooklyn, and my mother took me by an ear and took me down there and said, here, give this kid a job. I shoveled snow. I did all these little things to make it. So society is different also. The young kids, we have a lot of great kids, and we have a lot of kids that don't want to work. I hear that on a lot of companies saying, I got people that they just don't want to work. The parents need to do something. Just the city having to do something, or the other communities like the Boys and Girls Club. The parents need to get out there and say, hey, you need to get out there and do something, and not be hanging on the corner with a gun in your belt. So I see both sides, and I didn't want to just repeat what they said. I agree with both of them 100%. The jobs that are out there, we need to fill with kids, and we need to get the parents out there pushing their kids to go to work. Well, I guess they don't do paper delivery much anymore, but there's jobs
Everyone
there.
reads the paper.
Bring them down and let them pack groceries,
Sir, please ask your question.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam, and thank you for this opportunity, Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Taylor, likewise, always a pleasure. Mr. Henry, you know I'm not a stranger. Mr. Taylor probably know where I'm going with this. As the co-chair of our county Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, Mr. Taylor mentioned about Palm Beach. I mean, not Palm Beach, but Port St. Lucie. And you know, once I took up, elevated the co-chair, I did go up there. And to see what they were doing as to address their housing crisis. So now we're here for Pierce on this level right here. If elected, and I'd like Mr. Taylor, with all due respect, to start off, would you partner like they did in Port St. Lucie with Palm Beach Land and Trust with our vacant lots, rather than sell our lots to investors, but you partner with Palm Beach, someone like Palm Beach Land and Trust, who would come in and invest and build on those lots? I know there's different variances have to go down, and you served on boards for that, so you know the logistics. But it's a start to addressing our affordable housing crisis. And that's just the first question. The second question would be, and it's my favorite, Mr. Commissioner Johnson, CRA. Mr. Johnson is one man. Commissioner Gaines is one person. When you're up there, you're making the decisions as a whole. We have a CRA plan, and for those of you who don't know what the CRA is in the community, it's money allocated from the federal government, handed down to every state, to local municipalities, to improve the blighted and impoverished areas of our city. And I encourage you to go see Mr. Johnson on that, because he served on the CRA board, and he can further give you information on that. How would you incorporate the northwest section that's blighted and impoverished and allocate our funds that our city is given from the federal government to address that need? My last question for you to answer is the current issue, and that's the crime. We talked about the youth. Now, crime does affect property values. It goes much deeper. That's why we can't have jobs here, because businesses have to pay insurance. So it's a high risk. And you know, insurance is a ripoff these days. How are we going to address this crime? Because we want our youth to have the best. But if our youth are taking a bullet up their behind just walking to the bus stop, you know, we have an issue. And what I mean by how we're going to address the crime, we had a task force when I grew up. You know, what are you going to implement right then and there upon taking office? Because there's no time to chest drive, and we're losing lives every day. And honestly, I feel like I'm in a mental health crisis. I feel like I'm back in Afghanistan some days. And I'm just being frank. Thank you.
So I just want to sum up. I mean, we're going to talk about a little bit about the vacant property and working in conjunction with the Palm Beach entity, the CRA, and then crime. And you still only have 2 minutes.
Okay. You couldn't have passed one of those questions to one of your friends or something? We got 2 minutes. Okay. So I'll say your first question on the Palm Beach Land and Trust, I think that is a fantastic program that has shown to be working in the city of Port St. Lucie. And, you know, I could talk all day about the benefits of infill development and keeping those, you know, streets that we already have paved, that already have resources on it, and how much cheaper that is as a city, you know, than building new developments out, you know, western and where there's nothing there already. So infill development is a big opportunity, and I would 100% would commit to a program like that. Allocating funds to the CRA, the city has a lot of programs. You know, you can get your house painted for free. You can get all these community development block grants, all this money that's available coming from the federal government to to change the way our city looks and to, reestablish pride in our city. And I'm 100% behind the CRA. And I think it was just expanded recently, if that's correct. I mean, at least last couple of years anyway. Anyway, ask him. But the CRA is a great tool and something that, it's money coming from the federal government that we can use to our benefit to make Fort Pierce the best it can be. I missed the last question.
Crime.
My father's been a reserve Fort Pierce policeman for as long as I've known him, so before I was born. And he's dedicated his time to the city of Fort Pierce, doesn't get paid. He's a there when they need him kind of thing. And I'm committed to fully funding the city police department. We've got 109 sworn officers, and I want to increase that as much as we can. But policing isn't always it's not the fix, not 100% of the problem. Not going to fix everything. It takes our community, it takes groups like these to ensure that we're not going to stand for the crime anymore. And it takes all of us to commit to that. 2 minutes.
Commissioner Johnson? Do you need me to?
So the land trust issue, it's a novel concept. I think one of the challenges is that a lot of these properties that you see are vacant are already owned by individuals. So that is something that we don't have much developable land that could come and benefit that. And then the other concern of it is that we're talking about infill and putting houses there, and economically, who can afford to stay there and buy that house and make the note on it each and every month? It's a concept that works there because the economy in Port St. Lucie is largely funded by people who have moved from New York, who have wealth and can afford to pay the house and to make the note. So economically, I think while there are some opportunities to do that here, we're not quite in that position. But what puts us in that position is the CRA. And the CRA, there's a slight correction to what you said. We don't get money from the federal government. The CRA is actually funded by the citizens of Fort Pierce within a particular area that allows for us to use those tax areas and tax funds to fund projects inside the CRA zone. So there's a boundary inside the city of Fort Pierce that is a community redevelopment agency. Yes, we can go and ask for grants and those types of things to match it, but a lot of those tax funds are used to do that. So give you an example. The gym that was built back when crime was rampant and we had the midnight basketball and we built the Percy Peak gym. Those were CRA funds that we had and we borrowed against to build that gym and make that investment in the community. And so we have been able to pay down a lot of our loans that we have taken in the CRA, and what you will begin to see is the CRA will begin to look at initiatives in the community to make investments that will benefit the residents of the city of Fort Pierce. And so I think we'll be looking for ideas of what's next and how we make some investments to clean up our community, meaning literally clean up our community. We will see, we funded things like additional resources for the police department through the CRA. You will see that. And then you'll also see the CRA making investments dealing, quite frankly, with some of our homeless situation. So you're absolutely right. There are funds there that have been identified that we can utilize to make some investments strategically in our community to address the things you have raised. And so just stay tuned on that. That conversation is ongoing and active, but we are advantaged to have a CRA here.
Mr. Haney?
All righty, thank you. I, for one, am not for bringing in a company to buy up the land. I agree with Mr. Johnson that we don't have enough of it, for one. But Port St. Lucie doing that is where we got the raises of the rent. If you have a company coming in, buying the land and putting in houses, they control the rent. And that's where we started seeing the raise in rent, because we had a lot of these houses like that. Of course, the builders building their houses and getting the price that they wanted also. But that was one reason. So I would be against that in myself. As a realtor, I see it all the time where somebody buys 10 lots, puts up 10 houses. Now they're controlling those 10 houses for how much rent they're going to get for it. So it's hard to get into there. So it's not going to help the lower end get a house with that perspective, in my opinion. The CRA, we have monies. There's programs, I think Mr. Johnson may have mentioned, there's programs there now that just got to be asked for. The problem is the residents do not know what these programs are, and we need to be better at what is available. If somebody came in here to this room right now in the back and said, hey, I got 10 grand, if you want to buy a house, I'll throw it out with you, you may take up on it. You just need to know what's available from the city, because the CRA does have some money. And I think the commissioners right now, I like all the commissioners. I like their train of thought. So I think I'd fit in there. Of course, I have a couple things that I don't always agree with. But in general, they are doing a fantastic job when it comes to the money in the CRA. And that's my opinion on that. Crime is a big thing with me. That police station that we paid all that taxpayer money on Avenue D is never open. I did a ride-along with the police. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the Fort Pierce Police. I know a lot of them. But I did a ride-along with someone I didn't know, and I'm talking to him and asking him about that building because, it's closed all the time. It just seems that way. We're paying the air conditioning on that thing every day. I'm sure a lot of you would like to have that air-conditioned money. So I would want to see that police station used again. Force a couple of people that are in the offices over at the other side on off of US 1, come back to this office, leave those doors open, make it more accessible to our kids. And I know this is old-fashioned, but I grew up where we had a beat cop, and you had cops on bicycles. Those things work. You can get around a lot on a bicycle. And if I was a 12-year-old kid and I'm seeing a cop every day walking down the street and wants to talk to me, it changes our way of thinking. But we've grown so much to being separated, the cops being the bad guy, that kids today don't understand why we have police. I see my time, so thanks. I'll get off this thing.
Attorney Nash, do you have a question?
I do. Good evening. Before I ask my question, though, I do want to continue to encourage the attendees to please feel free to ask your questions because we put this on for you, not for you to just listen, but for you to get the answers that you desire. All right. So my question is really more so for the District 2 candidates. District 1 is very dear to my heart. I grew up between my two great-grandmother's house off of 24th and P and 16th and G. Oftentimes, and this kind of connects to what Mr. Peak said earlier, as somebody who lived in Sheridan Plaza, spent a lot of time between my family's houses, I have not seen in my almost 40 years of life much development there. However, I also understand how government works, and if I can't make the city commissioner meetings, I do try to listen online. And oftentimes, even now with Commissioner Gaines and Commissioner Johnson, even when we had Mr. Sessions and Mr. Alexander, Duke Nelson, there has always seemed to be the 2 against 3 all the time. And so there sometimes where there are things that can benefit District 1 and the 2 commissioners in District 1 are for it, it kind of seems like the other 3 that sit on the dais are not for it. So my question is possibly twofold. One, what would you do? Because even though you're representing District 2, you're making decisions for the entire city. So even for those who don't live in your district. So how would you go about to getting to know the citizens in District 1 so you can help join in with the District 1 commissioners to bring things into District 1 that would benefit our community?
Well, hopefully you're picking up that I do know the citizens of District 1 on the things that I say. And that is exactly what we need, is we need to talk to the people that live here. I mean, that's what I do. I act as a planning board. when we have something come on the agenda that's being done, I like to get out there and actually talk to the neighbors before I make a decision to push forward my thought process to the commission. So I would like to continue doing that, but my upbringing is to get out there and talk to the people that are living there and get their input. That's why I did that boots on the ground on Saturday. I know about the police station's always closed. I am riding through here because I am a Fort Pierce person. I am not a District 2 person. I live here. I've been here for over 20 years. And with 26 years in the Navy, I've never seen color during that time. So it doesn't mean there's a border there for me. And I feel that I do know a lot of what the problems are because I talk to the people in District 1. And actually, a couple of minutes, I do have these I'm going to leave. It has a cell phone number on it. I give them out, and I give my cell phone number out all the time. You got a complaint or a call, I don't even have to be on the commission. I like to hear about it. So I hear about some of the stuff downtown businesses are complaining about. But I'm not on the commission, so I don't have the decision making. And that's where I feel I need to be to help what I do hear from the people of Fort Pierce. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Aisha. And that you hit the nail on the head. You know, I'm campaigning. I'm focusing on District 2 because that's who's going to be voting for me. But once elected, I am 100% committed to the One Fort Pierce idea and mantra. And I look to Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Gaines to kind of guide me as to what needs to be done in District 1. But I look for them for guidance, for advice, and on the commission, hearing what their opinions are and what they need, and I think they need to be driving that train for District 1. But it goes beyond that, where I give my cell phone out to everybody as well, but I have your phone number now, Aisha, so expect a phone call. I'm going to be calling you, asking what you think, what other community leaders in District 1 think, going beyond what the commissioners are and going above and beyond what just the commission does, and reaching out to all of you because we're all in this together, and I want to vote how I'm voting you, because you're right. I'm voting on things that affect the entire city, and we all are. I'm not just focused on District 2, and we don't subdivide those issues and where only District 2 votes on things, and that's just not the way it works. And I would look to you and other leaders in the District 1 community to guide those votes for me.
Commissioner, would you like to say a word on that? I mean, you started your whole introduction with this.
No, I've made it a point to drive this point across to everybody on the commission, is that we are One Fort Pierce. I think what will help too is that as we in District 1, and I'll put this on me and Gaines, we really need to want to understand what District 1 really wants to. Because I surveyed the land, and a lot of the land on some of these major corners are owned by individual families, and they've been in those families for a long time. And so it really comes down to that conversation that we have to foster an idea of what District 1 wants. And the part we play as a commission is to support that, right? It's to, as far as our rules and ordinances and what you can build if it's zoned correctly, meaning that you can't build a commercial shopping center in a residential neighborhood because it's not zoned that way, right? So, that's the part that we play to do that. But I think, the commission, when it comes to some of the development in District 1, it's got to be led by us. It's got to be led by the people that want to invest in the community. And there are some people in the community that have the means to do that. And I think we just have to figure out what that is and bring those ideas to the table and get them invested so that we see things in the community that the community will support and patronize. Because when you're in business, you have to make the bills. You got to pay the bills for that business. And if you're not getting the support and people are not patronizing the business that you put there, nobody can stay in business without people buying their services. And we have to make sure that that happens, and unfortunately, in some cases, people have been reluctant to make that kind of investment in our community. So I have to do a better job of finding the right investors to come along to work with the landowners to try to bring development there. So I take that on, because once we get that, there's very little that they can do to not go along with that. We have to find the right thing in our community that we will support and people will support, because we want people from District 2 to come and buy barbecue on 25th Street from one of those great places that sell barbecue there, or whatever, right? So that's my idea.
Thank you, candidates. Community, you've asked some wonderful questions, and so I'm going to give you this last opportunity. If someone has a question, please, this is your time. Ma'am? Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Johnson. You've been a commissioner how long? 4 years?
Yes, sir. Coming up in 4 years.
Yeah, okay. What I've been seeing in my community, Fort Pierce, the city of Fort Pierce, is affordable housing is not being built within the city limit. Within the city limits. So what I'm thinking is the reason why it's not being built within the city limits, because people are going to go where affordable housing is, where they can afford it. So if you're not building affordable housing in the city, where the people's going to gravitate to where you're building affordable housing? Is there some kind of plan to move people out of the community?
It's absolutely the opposite, in my opinion. Right down the street here, 2 blocks, is an investment that the city of Fort Pierce invested in for first-time home buyership, right on the back of Oaks and Morris Creek. So once you cross a little canal, the house there, but there is about 15 plots back there that are it's a start, because again, that's property that's owned by the city. We can do that with property that we have to build affordable housing. If we don't have the property, that property lies in the hand of a personal private developer or person. So if that person is not willing to sell you their land, or the price of the land is so high that they want for it, that it makes it unaffordable for a developer to come in and buy the property and build a house, because they too have to get a return on that investment. And so it's a compounding issue. And so I would love to build more affordable housing and go out and do some things in the city of Fort Pierce, but we don't have the tracts of land to do that. Now, we do have some small quarter-acre lots. You're going to see something coming up pretty soon where we're going to experiment with something in the city of Fort Pierce, because we have put out to the development community to say, hey, we'll give you this land, or we'll sell it to you at a very low price. All we ask is you to build a house on it. And quite frankly, we had to really kind of push some people, because they bought the land for $2,000, $3,000, and all we asked for them to put a foundation on it. And some of that we had to claw back because they didn't fulfill the contract. Others we had to threaten we were going to take it, and they finally put a foundation and run up some brick walls, but nothing else has happened since then. So we got a lot going on in the city that if we want to get into it, we can really discuss, but we are trying to incentivize people to build affordable housing, and it has failed. They have bought property, they didn't develop it, we took it back. So we're going to try something a little bit different, because the people that came and represented that they had the means to do what we asked them to do, and they showed it to us on paper, it didn't come to fruition. Okay? So we're doing our part with what we have for our land that we have. We don't have a lot. But the ones that we tried, we failed. And the community people that bought this property failed us, because our whole mission was to get houses built in the inner city, or what I call infill development. That's the best we can do. And so, you know, it's a tough conversation, but you got to understand that we're just not sitting back, not trying to get housing and keep people here. There is no plan to move people out of Fort Pierce. What Fort Pierce needs to understand, though, in District 1, I have 9 different housing authority properties in District 1. 9 from the Federal Housing Administration. Do you realize the federal government does not pay taxes? You do know that, right? So all that property you see out there for the housing authority, they pay no taxes to the city of Fort Pierce. I cannot run and give services on things that we don't control. And if you look at some of these housing authorities, it ain't going to be the city that's going to drive them out. It may be the government, because that's housing authority that controls that stuff. I don't know what the plan is there, but I can tell you that the housing authority concept have been remodeled in a lot of cities. I looked at Tampa, and Tampa did away with what the structures that we have here in the density of that. They did away with it, and they brought in something called affordable housing. They mixed all kind of people in together. You don't know who's poor, you don't know who's rich, you don't know who's black, you don't know who's white. They all living right there together. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes to Fort Pierce, but that won't be your city doing that. That'll be the federal government.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ma'am, would you like to ask your question? Here.
My question sort of goes along with what you're saying, because I'd like to ask the candidates what ideas they have to hold folks accountable. We're talking about economic development and how important that is, but I drive past that Amazon warehouse that was supposed to bring a bunch of jobs here, and it's sitting over there empty. So, if we provide incentives for economic development, how are we going to hold these companies accountable that they're going to do what they say they're going to do best?
I'm going to start with that because here's one thing you got to know. When they build those big buildings, they get on the tax roll. So it's not my problem that they're empty, right? All that million of square feet out there on Kings Highway, they are now on the tax rolls of the city of Fort Pierce. So that bolsters up the opportunity for us to invest in the city of Fort Pierce because they're paying taxes on property that they have built in the city of Fort Pierce. I wouldn't be surprised. Amazon is shifting. I'll give you some hope on something I heard yesterday in the meeting. Our airport has quietly begun to come online. And the county and those guys who run the airport are quietly moving that airport forward. And you're going to see some things here very shortly and being announced with that airport. And it's going to be one of the economic engines for Fort Pierce. And so I'm going to let them bring that forward, but things are going to come. Sometimes we put the cart before the horse, and I have to be careful with that because we can't build up false hope. But just know that when we see shiny buildings built, that's a good thing because they're on the tax roll. Vacant land, the property value, the assessment on vacant land is not there. When buildings come up, that's the assessment that puts them on a tax roll that will allow for us to do the things we need to do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Heaney.
I like what you said, but also in the same sense, we'll look at King's Landing. We're not getting any money that way. It kind of hurt us. I think everything looks nice in County Commission, and I like the guys that are up there. But we need better oversight. We can't jump into a lot of ideas and then find out the hard way that they can't afford what they're building, or it's not coming. So we end up with a lot of land there with not something being built yet to gain our taxes on. Yeah, so oversight is a big thing. But with that said, I just want to say one thing about the community. I was on the Surtex Infrastructure Oversight Committee. There are so many committees that are volunteers from the community, that you could see what's going on, and you would get more involved. You would see how things work on a certain stuff. And I'm not saying you don't know, but I'm saying when I went to the Surtex committee, I learned just fixing a road 1 block long, how much is involved in it. And when we had the Surtex for our taxes, how many people actually we get money from to fix that street. So it's a really good thing, and I'd like to see more community people getting involved with those kind of, once a month, once every couple of month meetings, and you can really put a lot of input in. Thanks.
Mr. Taylor?
I'll say that the Amazon building, I think, is its own thing. That was kind of an anomaly, and I do hope that eventually that building gets filled. But as Commissioner Johnson said, it is a good thing that it's there because they're paying taxes to the city. And I know we just had another one of those large buildings out on the Crossroads in the city of Fort Pierce that just was leased out. One of the largest square foot lease in the state of Florida for this year so far, which I think is a huge, exciting thing that's happening in the city. And we got the buildings that are being built, but we can't dictate the market. We can't decide who goes in and who decides to lease it and bring the jobs, but the city can do the best that we can, and it's good to have those there because with the incentives that are coming down from the state to bring businesses to Florida, and we've already got a couple of buildings that are open and ready, and I think that comes down to marketing Fort Pierce to where the companies want to move here, and they want their employees to live here, and they want to employ our local workforce, and having a positive attitude for Fort Pierce and marketing it the way that the Visit St. Lucie and partnering with the county that are bringing people to the Treasure Coast, and coming down here for vacation and realizing, what, I kind of want to stay here. I want to live here. And having those buildings and having jobs, and, that's the dream. I think that's what we all want.
Thank you, candidates. We are going to get ready to close our evening, but before we do the closing remarks, and we have remarks from the president of the NAACP, Attorney Nash, I want to ask you, if you were to describe your administration with one word, what would that be? Administration. Well, your candidacy.
Oh, okay.
One
I
word.
don't have an administration. Optimistic.
Mr. Taylor?
It's tough. One word.
One word.
I'll say energetic.
I'm going to go with willing, open-minded, willing.
Willing. Okay. Thank you so very much. We are now going to have closing remarks, and we will have those closing remarks starting with Mr. Taylor.
All right.
And for the closing remarks, let me remind you, you only have 1 minute. 1 minute.
That's fine. I'm not a long talker. Ask my wife. I can say pretty much everything I want to say in about 2 sentences. But I do want to say again, thank you to everybody that came out tonight, and I'll again say that I'm committed to the city of Fort Pierce. I'm 5th generation. I love this city, and I believe I can bring a lot to the table. I know how our government works, but just enough where I can be dangerous. It's important that you realize what you're doing, and as a representative of District 2 and of the city of Fort Pierce. I'm here to represent you guys, not the other way around. I'm not coming with my own agendas. And I hope and pray that this isn't the only time that I'm meeting all of you this evening. I want your cell phone numbers because I want to call you and get your opinions on matters with the city of Fort Pierce. And I hope for your vote in November. ElectJamesTaylor.com. Thanks.
Mr. Heaney.
All right, thank you, and thank the NAACP for putting this on and the church for letting us use it. I'm asking the citizens of Fort Pierce to get involved. That's what I'm asking for. Of course, asking for your vote if you are in District 2 or you know people in District 2. But I feel that if you get to know me, you will know I am the right person for this job. I have been doing the Surtex Infrastructure Committee, the Parking Committee, and the Planning Board here in Fort Pierce. I get out into the streets, I know what's going on, and I feel I'm the best person for the job. I do love the city. We need growth, but we need smart growth. We don't need the Miami or the Port St. Lucie for my ideas. I think Fort Pierce is beautiful. It started out as a fishing community. We need to make it better, but yet keep it to where we could all be friends. I will have phone numbers on there. Call me anytime. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
I want to thank Ms. Nash, the NAACP, Pastor Johnson, thank you for having and hosting here. Ms. Laws, thank you for getting us through, the Attorney Laws, thank you for getting us through this. I'm asking for your support to continue to do the work that needs to be done, partner not only with the other District 1 Commissioner, but the new District 2 Commissioner, as well as working with the Mayor and the other District 2 Commissioner. We've got some things going. We are moving forward with Fort Pierce. This is your city. This is our city. It's an honor to serve you. My door is always open. I have office hours at City Hall on Wednesdays. I also do evening appointments at the Indian River State College on Avenue D in the Blackburn building starting at 6. So if there are things there that you want to talk about, I'm always available and look forward to continuing to serve District 1 in the city of Fort Pierce.
Thank you so very much, candidates. Audience, community members, we may now applaud our candidates. I just want to echo everyone's thanks to the NAACP for sponsoring this event and for Pastor Johnson, who has helped us with all the audio equipment and the timing, and so we just really want to thank them. And we're now going to have closing remarks from Attorney Nash as well as from Pastor Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. For those of y'all who do not know me, my name is Aisha Nash, and I am the outgoing president of the St. Lucie County NAACP. It has been a pleasure to serve for these 4 years. Before I give thanks, I do just want to give you all a few announcements. We do have vote by mail request forms in the back. If you raise your hand if you'd like to vote by mail. I know there's more hands than that. Really? It's okay to be honest. Keep your hands up real quick. How many of you all know that now every year you have to make a new request for your ballot? Okay. All right. So a lot of people did not know that. All right. So we're trying to get that word out. Well, when I figured out what the question was, but we were talking about how people did not know about these programs. A lot of people don't know about the changes in the law. And so we don't want anybody to get arrested for election fraud, okay? Because they are arresting people for that and trying to sentence them for that. So please make sure if you vote by mail, make sure you make a new request. We do have those forms in the back. We have another candidate forum, so I see quite a bit of NAACP members here. We will not have our monthly June meeting because we think it's important for us to actually have the sheriff candidate forum. So instead of the general body meeting, we will have the sheriff candidate forum right here, June 20th, in place of our meeting, but we will not start at 6:30 like we did today. We will start at 6. So that's the time of executive committee meeting. We will start at 6, okay? Please feel free to ask your questions then. Also, election dates. The primary election, the deadline to register for that will be July 22nd. Early voting starts August 10th and ends on August 17th. The hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the election day will be August 20th. And those hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It is very important that you vote not just in the general election in November, but also the primary, because some of these candidate races are affected by the primary. And so you will end up having, like, say for the sheriff race, I believe there are 6 candidates. And so only 2 of them can be on the ballot for November. So please make sure you register. Yes, ma'am. It's partisan. Mm-hmm. And now let me do what I came up here to do. Foremost, I want to say thank you to Pastor Johnson. I always say every time I'm here, and I will never not say it, it always feels good to be home. I love my friendship family. It's the foundation that I have to do the conjunction to my family. Thank you. And thank you for always letting me use the facility whenever I need it. I know anytime I reach out to you, you never tell me no. And so on behalf of the NAACP and Faith in Florida, we want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you to Ms. Jean Law Scott. I don't know where she went. Okay, she stepped outside. Okay. Our moderator for tonight, when we were talking about the jobs, everybody in here knows, or if you know me, being a lawyer is my second career. I knew not a single black female attorney when I went to law school at 27 years old. That woman gave me my first internship. So if you have businesses and you want the kids to get to work, do what Ms. Law Scott did to me. She taught me almost everything I know about practicing law in this circuit. So if you have that business, if you have connections to businesses, you can do what she did for me, right? So I did just want to share that. Also on my list, thank you, candidates, for coming and responding to the call. Neither one of you are delayed in the request, so I thank you so much for agreeing to not only answer our questions, but also making yourself available to the community at large. Lastly, well, not lastly, because I do have one more after this, but I also want to say thank you to Faith in Florida, Alicia, and Stevan. I know I'm supposed to say on behalf of all three of us, thank you, but anytime that I call Faith in Florida and I'm like, oh, I have this idea, they're like, let's run it. And so they do, and even though I feel like I'm always everywhere, you all run it. We get together, we have our meetings, even if it's at 8 o'clock or 8:30 at night, we have our meetings, so we can show the community how much we care by the activities that we put on. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Please give yourself a round of applause. In past election years, there have been times where we would do these candidate forums and there will only be about 6 people in the room, right? And I think this year, or what has occurred over the last 2 to 4 years, people are seeing that, hey, my vote really does count. Please don't get discouraged if your candidate does not get selected. I'm a former math teacher. I taught math at Westwood for about 6 years and 1 year at Centennial. It's an inequality equation, right? When we think about less than and greater than, right? In order for your candidate to get selected, they have to have the majority of the votes. And so if you feel as though they will not win, we need to be responsible for going out there and talking to our loved ones, making sure that they are not just voting, but they are making educated votes. We can no longer just go to the polls and just check people whose names that we see or names that we know. We do have to come out here. This was streamed live, so anybody can go back and watch it. And just have the education. They say call them. They want to get to know you. Hold them accountable to that, okay? Hold them accountable to that so that you can be an informed voter when you go to the polls, no matter who you vote for, all right? Other than that, I think I'm supposed to give it to Pastor Johnson. Okay, she's shaking her head, yes. So closing remarks or prayer? Oh, prayer. Thank you, everyone, once again for coming out.
Thank you to everyone who attended. We're getting ready to go. If I may, one moment. Years ago, there was a quarterback in the NFL, starting quarterback that got hurt, and they put in the backup, and the backup did a horrible job. And after the game, he gave a post-game interview, and he had the audacity to say that they lost because he did not prepare for the game. Before the week was out, that backup was without a job, and I don't think he ever played in the NFL again. His lack of preparation cost not only the team its game, but it cost him his future. I want to thank Faith in Florida, thank the NAACP, because they have given this community an opportunity to prepare yourselves. for the upcoming election. I am a praying man. I am a man of faith, but when I get through praying, I need information to make informed decisions. The time of just going to the ballot box or going in the booth and looking at the name and just checking that box has long passed. We need to have this information. These candidates prepared themselves to come out. However you're led to vote, I encourage you to make sure you are prepared to vote. But opportunities like this, if we fail to prepare ourselves to vote, we are costing not only ourselves, but we're costing our children. We're costing our community. I heard it said, and we're ready to go. We have children that are dying on our streets. We have unhoused individuals with no opportunity. We have a community that has potential, but that potential is unfulfilled. We have an obligation, and I'm not a Fort Pierce native. I'm a Miami, but I pastor in Fort Pierce. And I love Fort Pierce and the people of Fort Pierce. So I encourage us to go from this place, use the information you've been given, and make the decision that you feel is best for this community. And then after that decision is made, to hold those accountable whom you've allowed to serve you in this community. I may not say that anywhere else, but I think I can say it here. Amen. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for these individuals who have prepared themselves to come and promote their candidacy and present the ideas that you have laid upon their heart. God, we pray your blessings upon them, oh God, according to your will and your word. You assign leaders. You allow leaders in this your world. God, the word says that the king's heart is in your hand, and you are able to turn it according to your will. Bless them for their willingness to serve, oh God, and then bless the people for their willingness and their desire to receive information to make the best choice for themselves, for their communities. Bless Faith in Florida. Bless the NAACP. Bless the individuals that work together to bring about this opportunity. God, we are about to leave here. Let our coming not be in vain. Take us home safely as you have brought us here. Keep us safe in our homes, in our communities, in our schools, on our jobs. Bless Fort Pierce, oh God. Bless it with economic development. Bless it, oh God, with mental redevelopment, oh God. Bless it with only what you can give, so that only you will get the glory. For God, we live in this world, but we will not deny you as the creator of this world. Hear us now, for you are Abba, our Father. And we ask it, we believe it, we receive it now. In the name and the authority of your Son, Jesus, the Christ of Nazareth, we pray. And we say amen, amen, and amen. I believe that is it. Good morning, and God bless you.